Boy, boy, I want you to blaze the fire. Show me your lighters all night. Put the lighters up in the air. Give them fire now and just blaze the fire. Show me them lighters tonight. Put the lighters up, yeah, put the lighters up. Everybody now, blaze it up, blaze it up, blaze it up, start to blaze it up, yeah. Raise it up, raise it up, raise it up, start to raise it up, yeah. Ignite, 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 ignite. Let it burn like a gremlin.
Gaslight. Okay, so all you see where it started to take place already, right? Just so there was a jam on my signal. So boy, hey, me and understand why people so afraid this live. What is about this live that is cause people so much upset stomach and so much heartburn? Just so you know, boom, it, you know, there was a drop in signal. All my internet just went. Well, I can tell you. No, it wasn't your Wi-Fi, love. It was on my end. There was some jamming. But say what? I'm back. And let me just say this. If there is a dip, if there is another jam of the signal again, I will just do it directly from like my... Actually, I could do this straight to YouTube, right? Yeah, I can do this straight to YouTube. So if there are any problems on the Facebook end of things, we will just go straight to YouTube, and I'll put up a notice so you all know we're going straight to YouTube. So this evening we're going to be talking about gaslighting. And we're talking about gaslighting because as a nation, as a country, we have been experiencing gaslighting since 2010 in a very, very, very significant way, right? Gaslighting all up we hoo-ha. So gaslighting coming out your throat. What I was saying before, one, was condolences to the family of Vincent Ochoa because he was one of our regulars. And two, I was saying I didn't read news for the week except on Sunday, and I read one story, all of one story. And the story that I read was this story. Let me close the eye on Home Girl Day. So this is a story that I read, right? 2,000 Venezuelans return home as cost of living rise in Trinidad and Tobago. So it was, when was I aware of this whole crisis? I became aware on Monday about the crisis. I heard people, I mean, there was some stuff circulating in my WhatsApp about it. And I was like, okay, Coast Guard, boat, sea, Coast Guard doing his job, right? And then the story started to come in. But before I jump in to talk about the Coast Guard story, because it's the Coast Guard story we're going to focus on, but that is just a way to discuss this whole gaslighting situation. I want to ask all of this. All you, I sure every single last one all you on the live has been in a relationship. At some point in time in your life, you was in a relationship. Whether it's man, woman, 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 man, man, mother, father, you know, two parents, whatever it is. Everybody has been in a relationship at some point in time. And everybody, I'm sure, has been in a relationship where things like this may have been taking place, right? So let me ask all you some questions. You ever been in a relationship where somebody just lie all the time? Like as soon as they inhale and they look to exhale is a lie, right? Have you ever been in a situation where you're in a relationship with somebody like that? Whether you want to be in the relationship or not, you're in the relationship and the person just lie all the time and exaggerate on the lie all the time. You ever had an experience like that? What about you're in a situation, you're in a relationship with the person, they're lying to you, you're feeling abused by them. but they always discrediting you. So they just go to everybody to bad talk you. This is, even though them doing the foolishness, you know, they going around, they bad talking you to everybody. So you have no idea what people thinking about you, what people saying about you, because this person that you in a relationship with, whether or not you want to be in a relationship with that person, running left, right, center by Tom, Dick, Harry, and Henrietta, and saying whatever it is they want to say about you, and them making up thing, exaggerating thing. Oh, listen, the line, I see David say Trump style, yes, bigly, right? The line bigly in a big way. All you can call name, you know. Call name. Because I know some of you have ex like what is I talking about. Some of you might actually be still in the relationship with the person. Because right now, this country still in a relationship with this person. You ever had a relationship where when you catch the person lying to you, when you catch the person abusing you, the person just deflect, find way to distract, right? Switch to the next topic, shift the goalpost, change the conversation, find, oh look, you watch that. You ever in a relationship like that? Whether it is a work relationship or an interpersonal relationship? Yes, Michelle, a set of alternative facts, right? So you there, foot on foot with this person, and whenever you turn wrong and you point out, hey, I ain't like what it is you're doing, me, you know, right? Level deflect. It's never them. You is the problem. Them is not the problem. You is the problem. Right. You ever in a position where you trying to explain how you feeling to this person, you trying to express your needs in this relationship with this person, and that person always minimizing your thoughts and feelings? What you saying is foolishness. What you saying ain't making sense, right? What is you come up with there, that's foolishness. So you cannot at any point in time talk about how you being made to feel in a relationship, because every single time you try to talk about how you being made to feel in the relationship, you're getting shut down, your feelings being minimized, nobody wants to hear your thoughts. Correct, Cheryl. Deflect, belittle, and blame, right? Deflect, belittle, and blame. You're ever in this relationship and this person, hands down, will always deny that they're doing anything wrong? Nothing. No matter what you bring up, what you point out to them, no matter how much information and evidence you present, they never do nothing wrong. It wasn't their fault. They were advised. They're not responsible for anything that took place here. They were advised. It's other people who are responsible, not them. Whenever anything goes wrong, it's not them. Nothing is never their fault. Never their fault. And you're ever in that same relationship with the person, and that person will tell you all the time, well, the reason I'm doing these things is because I love you, you know. It's love, I love you, right? And I doing all of these things for you. Half of me is yours, the other half I give to you. All you remember any of that? Half of me is yours, the other half I give to you, right? They always know how to come and play on your feelings and emotions, right? Because them is the victim. It's never you. Never the actual victim. Them is the victim. Let me tell you something. You see them 6 things I talk about it? If all you at any point in time experience them 6 things in a relationship and recognize them 6 things as things we have been dealing up with Kamla Prasad Bisasa, you are being gaslit. You are being gaslit. Because here's what has taken place, right? There's been a situation where, and I'm asking these questions, do you, as a result of the things she's saying, start to doubt your feelings and question reality? Yes, ever When UNC come out and say things sometimes, when they put out videos and they put out posts and they hold meetings and things, you have a pause and think, wait boy, that might have been true. I wonder if that's true. I wonder if what they're saying there is the truth, boy. No, all they come in and say no, all they don't believe it. All they just run and fly up in my inbox and ask me, is this true? That's how I know all they just believe it. Because all yourself who telling me no, never, just reach in my inbox. Send me video. Send me story to ask me, this true? You have any idea if what they're saying here is correct? Listen, level gas the gas and all you up, you know. Level gas the gas and all you up. And all it is reaching my inbox to stress my ass out about, is this true? Right? Is this true? All you know all yourselves. You just ever start to question your judgments and perception because of the things they're saying? Ever? You just start to question yourself and think to yourself, okay, all right, but maybe things as bad as they're saying it is, or maybe things better, right? You ever start to think, I wonder if I stupid or if I crazy, boy? You ever start to wonder if you alone understanding what is going on? You alone figuring out and seeing all of the things that are taking place? You ever start to feel like, is you alone could see through the foolishness they're carrying on with, but nobody else seeing through the foolishness they're carrying on with? You ever start to feel so? So, I want all of you to understand this. If all of you spend a lot of time in a relationship while you're constantly apologizing to the person who abusing you and asking the person who abusing you for forgiveness, all you're being gaslit. Level gaslit. Level gaslit. Right? Level gaslit. So, I want to get back to that story that I was looking at on Sunday. I want to let you remember this, right? On Sunday, the Newsday, right, published a story written by Grevik Alvarado. And Grevik Alvarado wrote a story that says 2,000 Venezuelans return home as cost of living rises in Trinidad and Tobago. Ole could never get me to believe that I actually read that story until I pull it up for myself today. Because I saying to myself, we sit down for a whole week and watch the Express gaslight the country into believing that things real dread and we have to let illegal immigrants into the country. And I want all it to be real clear about that, right? The Express, One Caribbean Media, again, spent an entire week gaslighting the public on behalf of the opposition because they run with the opposition story. Kamala come on Monday, she ride the wave with the story, and Express run the story all week long. That was their lead story all week long, and at no point in time did the Express ever talk about what was taking place as illegal. They didn't use that language. They stayed away from that language. They kept talking about migrants. That's what they kept talking about, migrants. Throughout their stories, they talked about migrants, they talked about Venezuelans, they talked about people leaving, fleeing, coming here. They talked about refugees. They did not say illegal immigrants. Never once did they say that. So Sunday had this story. 2,000 Venezuelans return home as cost of living rises in Trinidad and Tobago. And the story goes on to say a lot, right? That you have people leaving by the boatloads to go back to Venezuela, most of them sick, unemployed, single mothers, pregnant women, and children. And the point, the reasons given was that they can't find work here anymore, so they have decided to go back home, to go back to Venezuela. So there was that story on Sunday. Then there were these stories on Sunday and the rest of the week. Let me find them for you. As the first story, baby killed. Now I want you all to understand something. Express took a specific angle with this entire thing. You will realize that we are not aware of who are the other persons that were on that vessel. We know about the baby, we know about the baby's mother. We don't know who else is on that vessel. We also don't know who was the person driving the boat. Up to now, nobody has said who was the person driving the boat, nor have they said why the person driving the boat refused to stop the boat, right? So baby killed in Coast Guard drama. Then you have the full page story. Then release migrant children. So I look at this and I'm like, migrant children? Illegal immigrants. Yes, children, illegal immigrants. Illegal. We need to be very clear on this. What transpired on the weekend was illegal. A group of persons tried to illegally enter Trinidad and Tobago. We have, for the last 2 years, from 2020 to now, we have been listening to persons ever since there was the migrant registration. This would have been further back. So since 2018, 2019 come forward, we have been hearing people cussing the government left, right, and center. Close the borders, close the borders, close the borders. During the first year of the pandemic, 2020, we would have had journalists coming on to the Ministry of Health press conference on a daily basis. So this is when we had the daily press conferences, coming on and basically saying that they are aware, but they would ask questions that presented infection here as if it was coming from across the main. So there were all of these questions about what is national security doing to close the borders? What are they doing about the porous borders? What happening about the porous borders? Porous borders, porous borders, porous borders. Listen, Urvashi empty she guts on these press conferences talking about porous borders. A number of other reporters prior on them, porous borders, porous borders, porous borders. Now, you have a situation where, having received the vessels from Australia, the new Coast Guard vessels from Australia, we are patrolling on a daily basis. You have a situation where we've stopped a vessel from illegally entering the country, and illegally entering the country with humans. Human trafficking, right? The Coast Guard stop it, and now all of a sudden the Coast Guard are murderers. So I want to say this. It is very possible for something to be both tragic, which this is. It's a very tragic situation. It is very possible for something to be tragic and wrong. Very possible. It is not impossible for something to be two things. Life is not a zero-sum game. So it's not a situation where you automatically decide that this situation has to be one thing and not the other because of your feelings. A baby was killed. Tragic. A boat was bringing in illegal immigrants into Trinidad and Tobago. Wrong. And I don't think it is correct to refer to the boat as a migrant vessel, because when you go into the Express story, you see references to the vessel, to the boat, as a migrant vessel. You see, if it was a situation where people had taken their passports, bought tickets, gotten their PCR tests, because let me remember that all of this movement back and forth still taking place in the midst of a pandemic, right? So 37 persons, roughly, I think that's what the story was saying, about 37 persons pick up themselves and left their country illegally, because they didn't leave their country legally. So they left their country illegally, got onto a vessel, and was attempting to enter this country illegally. There is no point in this story where anything that was being done by the persons who were on that vessel was correct and legal and lawful. And yet I am seeing stories in the Express all week long talking about how legal letter for Heinz going to after this, that, and the other. In paying attention to what was being said in Latin America, in Venezuela, their government has called for a report into what has happened. And if it's a situation, which is what seems to be presented to us, if it's a situation where a vessel from here or from there left Venezuela illegally, crossed their waters over into our waters without permission, and was trying to land and offload immigrants, persons from Venezuela here, who don't have legal access and legal rights to enter the country, then I don't think that there's anything that our government is going to have to be worried about. Because as a sovereign state, we can decide who can and cannot get into the country. That's why we have things like immigration. That's why we have things like immigration. You could buy a ticket, you could have a passport, you could have a visa, land in a country and not be able to enter the country. We've seen that on a number of occasions. We've had people leave other countries, reach here, and when they land in the airport here, they can't go beyond immigration. They then get put on a flight and head back from whence they came. And that has happened to CARICOM nationals. We've had people leave other parts of the CARICOM, come here, and when they reach in the airport here and they can't answer questions properly, they get turned back. CARICOM nationals. And we are part of CARICOM. And now you have a situation where 30-something persons of Venezuelan origin leave their country in the dead of night, get onto a vessel, come over here. An exercise at sea leads to the death of a baby, and extremely tragic. And we have decided that the Coast Guard shouldn't be doing its job. That's the thing that had me stunned, you know. I don't have an issue with an investigation into what happened at sea. I don't have an issue with that at all, because a baby was killed and a woman was shot. But when you start to talk about the story as if the Coast Guard wasn't right to act the way in which it acted in terms of attempting to stop the vessel and firing warning shots and pretending that we don't need the Coast Guard to protect our borders. We actually haven't been asking the Coast Guard to protect our borders. That's what we're pretending at this point. The same Kamla Persad-Bissessor who has gotten up on her Monday night forum and in Parliament when she's semi-sober and calling for the government to protect the borders, close the borders, is the same Kamla Persad-Bissessor who get up this week, Monday night, and proclaim the Coast Guard as murderers. So let me get into that. Right? Let's get into Kamla and she murderous speech. Because I heard it. I only go into me even sure I want to play this whole thing.
Would have dealt with the
God, this woman's voice, boy, jeez and ages. Olya, give I strength, yes? Give I strength. But let me listen to Kamla's speech. This is only a minute of the speech, right? I went and pulled this off Cabal Wall. I didn't have the patience to listen to Kamla's whole speech that night. But let me listen to this part.
Would have dealt with the protection of our borders. And oh God, what a heart-rending, breaking thing. to see our Coast Guard, the Coast Guard of Trinidad and Tobago, firing on a migrant vessel, they called it, murdering a baby.
So Kamala gets on to her forum and says that the Coast Guard was firing on a migrant vessel, murdering a baby. Here, what is problematic about this entire speech from Kamala, or at least that first 16 seconds that we just listened to. Kamala gets up, and remember we just talked about how it is positioned itself as victims and use emotive language in a particular way, right? So Kamala gets on to her forum and she starts talking to her audience and starts painting the Coast Guard in a particular way. What I want all you to bear in mind is this. The United National Congress continues to think of national security as an Afro-descended entity, right? And so they tend to cast a lot of aspersions on all our branches of national security. And so she starts describing what would be normal protective action and activity from the Coast Guard where a vessel that isn't supposed to be in our waters is entering our waters as aggressive, unsanctioned, murderous behavior. And that for me is where I had to pause, because that's a real dangerous thing for Kamala to be saying. This is the same person who keeps saying close the borders. The same community that is be all over social media and wherever else talking about, oh, but the borders open, the borders open, the borders open, while at the same time having businesses that are benefiting from the contraband that is coming through the open borders. As a matter of fact, some of the allegations are, and this has been circulating in the public domain for a while, that they are members of the United National Congress that themselves are benefiting from all of this illegal activity that is taking place as a result of people being able to penetrate our borders. Let's finish this speech.
We are making international news, Trinidad and Tobago. We are making international news because of that. I cannot see, and I await the explanations, I cannot see, if you have a migrant vessel with people there, how you could open fire, you see women and children.
You hear it again? Migrant vessel with people there. Right? Migrant vessel with people there. That's not a migrant vessel. A boat leaving Venezuela in the dead of night with persons who don't have immigration clearance. A boat leaving Venezuela in the dead of night whose purpose is not to be ferrying people back and forth. It's not an official ferry. It's not an official cargo vessel or passenger vessel. But you have this illegal boat with illegal immigrants on it, and they keep using a particular kind of language. And of course, they're using that particular kind of language because they want to demonize the national security servicemen and women. And they want to soft soap and make this whole illegal entry into Trinidad come across as if it is something acceptable. So I want you all to understand that the gaslighting here is very, very, very specific, and it is very focused. Why? Because that's important. It is important for us to grasp and understand why. So let me jump down into the past a little bit, right? Well, you know me. Y'all remember this? Y'all remember the OPVs and them? You're going back to 2010. All you know me, I just like to go back in history and then come forward. All you remember the OPVs? All you remember the blimp? All you remember the radar? If all you're having problems remembering that, let me ask. All you recognize this couple? Because I see Gary jump out himself this week as well to complain about, oh, Kamala this and Keith that and blah, 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 blah. So let's go back to 2010 and we're going to come forward to 2022. Why? Because it is important, it is incredibly important for us to talk about how 2010 is relevant to 2022. So back in 2010, that dream team that you see in there, Kamala and Gary, the both of them took measures to dismantle our national security apparatus. There were a number of things that they did. There were 3 vessels that we would have ordered, the 3 OPVs that we would have ordered, that we cancelled, and I believe eventually the Brazilians took those vessels. There was also a whole set of bacchanal with helicopters and helicopter contracts. There was also the blimp that we scrapped and got rid of. There was also the radar signal situation, right? The radar that we also dismantled. And I've done a live here. I did a live here already where we talked about all of that apparatus, all of the security apparatus and how and how those things were meant to work together. I may have to go and find that and recirculate it so that people understand precisely what we lost, the number of things we lost, the kind of money we spent to get those things done, and then we had to wait 12 years, because this would have been 11 years, because last year was when we got these vessels from Australia. We had to wait 11 years to be able to get back vessels to be able to support and assist the Coast Guard in patrolling our waters. So back in 2010, Griffith, as National Security Advisor to Kamala, right? Because if all you feel Barry, sorry, I get my Garys and Barrys mixed up. If all you feel Barry was a lapdog, Gary was the first lapdog that Kamala had. So, yes, Renee George, I did a live about the whole OPV, all the national security things. I did a live about that last year and went deep into the various aspects of national security and what we lost as a result of Griffith. As a matter of fact, when I did that live, it was to talk about why I did not trust Griffith. And I went all the way back into his national security past to show you all what we lost as a result of his decision making. So this is Kamala with her pet poodle at that point in time, Gary Griffith. And Griffith would have advised Kamala to get rid of the OPVs and all of the other things that she had to scrap. And when she scrapped those things, our borders went wide open. So you need to ask yourself this. A country like Trinidad and Tobago that is positioned the way it is positioned in the Caribbean, right next to Latin America, and also able to have things go off to North America and Europe, why would you open up the borders in that way? Well, let me explain. You need to remember how Kamala got into government. Yes, she got into government as part of a coalition, but you need to understand what funded her rise. It would have been the business class, and it was all aspects of the business class that got together to fund the United National Congress getting into power. And they got into power as the People's Partnership, right? I'm sure you all remember that. And what you also need to remember is this. When the business class has put you into power, you have to serve the business class. You have to serve them. Once they are backing you, that's who you have to serve. And so if the majority of the business sector, private business sector, would have funded your return to office in 2010, funded your rise, to office in 2010, it means that you have to do things to scratch their back, not so? Now, if the private sector here has made a significant amount of money from the dark economy, then you have to do things to help support the dark economy. So now, maybe you want to know what is the dark economy. And it is at this point that I need to say this to you. There is nobody in Trinidad and Tobago that has made money, like vast amounts of money, huge amounts of money, without having done something illegal at some point in time. So let me qualify that. Members of the wealthy white class in Trinidad and Tobago who would have made lots of money during enslavement, let's be clear, they made their money because the thief land kidnapped people and exploited people. Punto final. And when you make your money like that, that's how you are generating wealth. You generating wealth from exploitation of land and people. Then you would have had subsequent generations of persons who making their money from contraband. We sit down right here and talk about Boise Singh late last year. Right here we sit down and we talk about Boise Singh. So today, in this live this evening, we go in and connect a series of dots, because everything that I am going to be talking to you about right now is stuff that we discussed already. So you start with people who making money off of thieving land, killing people, kidnapping people, exploiting people. Then they go on to make money from smuggling, right? Between Venezuela and Trinidad and Tobago, smuggling was taking place. Smuggling been taking place a couple centuries. So contraband is how a lot of persons would have been making money. And I'm talking about contraband in the 1800s and then in the early 1900s. We're still going to be talking about contraband. But the reason I'm talking about the 1800s and early 1900s is to ask all of this. In the 1800s and the early 1900s, black people in a position to be smuggling contraband back and forth? Only answer me that. Answer me that. Who would have been running racket in the 1800s and early 1900s? Who's smuggling contraband and who's smuggling human beings in the 1800s and the early 1900s? Right. And so eventually you start to have other groups and other people getting into all of the contraband and racket. Now when you have that money coming in from contraband and racket and you're running a cash-based society, nobody have no set of questions to ask. But after a while you start to run societies that have financial institutions, that getting into arrangements, global arrangements that talking about things like money laundering and anti-money laundering and those things. So you have rules and you have laws and you have guidelines. Don't let nobody tell you they became millionaires and billionaires off of selling paper bag and selling cloth. Anybody come and tell you they became millionaires and billionaires off of selling paper bag and selling cloth, they lie. How people become millionaires and billionaires in this country, real simple. Either they just try and suck the treasury tututs through state contracts, big state contracts, or they end up engaging in the dark economy. And the dark economy here covers a wide range of things. As a matter of fact, the dark economy is as extensive, if not more extensive, than the regular economy. So you have, I see somebody say selling car. Let we start with before selling car. Let we start with chop shop. You see, it have people like me who I around a while. So I know that there was a point in time when we had vehicle shortages in the country. When I say vehicle shortage, not everybody bringing in cars and things. Not like how they're bringing in cars now. So car used to get stolen and they used to chop up the cars, cut up the cars and resell people vehicle for parts. Because getting parts was expensive, getting parts was difficult. And then you go from thieving car and chopping up car, right, in areas called bamboo, to then bringing in foreign used car. So you stop thieving car, but what you're now doing is you're bringing in foreign used vehicles, right? And you're doing it on state land, state agricultural land. So it has multiple levels. But let we ain't jump down in bamboo, because you know what? Sunday evening is when I'm going to talk about bamboo with all you. Sunday evening we're going to talk the things about bamboo and business that burning down in bamboo. This evening we're going to start by talking about the dark economy here. So you have the dark economy. And the dark economy is a number of things. You have people who smuggling alcohol. I was a big woman in my 30s when I find out that plenty of the alcohol that we drink in here, that people feel is fancy alcohol that they drink in here, is bootleg. I was a big woman in my 30s when I find out it had companies bringing in bootleg whiskey, bootleg champagne, bootleg fancy rum, and selling it to people norms. You have people who bringing in exotic animals, bird, whatever, right? Monkey, all kind of bird, monkey, snake, all kind of thing. You have people who bringing in humans. You have people who bringing in drugs. And if you are in a situation where a government has brought in a blimp to work with OPVs and to work with a radar system, then you will end up in a situation where that country has a border that is far more robust than your business could survive. So if your business is dependent on a border being soft, if you run in business where you actually need the money from the dark economy to be able to keep afloat, because you have a restaurant, but you ain't really have people eating in the restaurant when the day come. Or you have a store selling a set of fancy, expensive things, but you really have people passing through the store and buying nothing. You open up a set of franchise all over the place, right? Franchise after franchise after franchise. But you ain't really have that kind of foot traffic taking place, right? So 10, 15 restaurants opening up in all kind of backwater, all kind of back road, right? All kind of back road. But the money running, the dark economy money running, and it coming in. And on the books, because you have books and the books cooking. When the books and them cooking, you're able to say, well, this store and that store and the other store. But you basically setting up storefront after storefront after storefront after storefront to be able to explain where the money that you have coming from. I see Alana coughing. All you get a strepsils for Alana, please. Because Alana start to call mall name and thing. Right? So you have a set of malls, you have a set of other franchises, you had a set of different business that just shoot up overnight. And of course the impression that you get when you see this, if you are not aware of the dark economy, the impression that you get when you see this is that the regular economy is booming and thriving, right? Not just growing, but growing in an exponential way, like growing like by 1,000% when the year come. But that is not necessarily the case. While the economy might have been showing growth, it wasn't that kind of growth, because that is dark economy money. One of the other ways to know when the dark economy working as well is through real estate prices. So you're seeing real estate prices. Listen, Trinidad is the same square footage it was thousands of years now, right? The size of the country ain't changed. As a matter of fact, because of eroding coastline, the country actually getting a little bit smaller when the year come. So you have an island, you have a twin island republic, roughly the same size for thousands of years. Price of real estate sky high, and the majority of the population can't afford to buy anything. So you're asking yourself, who buying these properties? Because if the majority of the population can't buy, or when they're buying, it's just like one property you could afford, who is the handful of persons that buying up all of the property at these astronomical prices? And where are they getting the money from to buy these properties at astronomical prices? So all of those things are the things that you need to pay attention to. Because when you get put in government by a private sector that needs humans to be trafficked, that needs bootleg alcohol to come into the country, that needs exotic animals to come into the country, that needs humans to be trafficked, because trafficked humans mean you have a cheap labor force. You don't have to pay people PAYE. You don't have to pay people NIS. You don't have to pay people health surcharge. Or let's stop and study that. That when you have an illegal workforce in your country, when you have an illegal workforce that is willing to work for less than minimum wage, it means that there is a labor surplus. So when you have an illegal workforce in your country and there is a labor surplus, and you could hire these persons and not pay any taxes as an employer. So you're not paying any taxes for them. You're not paying any NIS for them because they're not citizens. So they are no NIS number, right? They have no BIR number. They have no health surcharge to pay. So you as an employer, you are actually spending less on your labor bill on a monthly basis. So you have a company, and if you were spending $100,000 in salaries when the month come, now that you have this illegal labor force that you can pay below minimum wage, your cost cut. So you've cut your cost. You have this illegal workforce. You also have an illegal workforce that can function as a buffer, right? Because we know that complexion is a very, very important thing here. So you bring in an illegal workforce, and you have this illegal workforce functioning as a buffer and also helping to depress the price of employment in a country. All of those things are things that need to be taken into consideration. You also, or we also, need to take into consideration that some of the human trafficking that was taking place here is for prostitution. So you have a prostitution ring, or you have multiple prostitution rings. Up to now, Gary Griffith cannot tell us why, when he went to Bayside, he was unable to arrest anybody for the COVID parties that he stumbled upon in Bayside. Up to now. I'm told that inside Bayside, there's a whole escort ring, a whole sex trade taking place. That's what I'm told. And I'm told that the TTPS is aware of it. They're aware of the various sex trade rings. And that's why there were no arrests that took place when that party was when that raid took place. And it's not that people don't know. The residents inside there, they are aware. They know. It's not that people don't know. So you come into government, you soften a border. As a matter of fact, you flatten the border entirely. So it had no border. It had no fence at all to keep anything out. A government changes, and in the course of changing, the government has, over a period of time, sought to find ways to close the gaps in the border. It's not perfect. It's not perfect at all. Not by any stretch of the imagination is it perfect. But it is finally making strides. Last year, the Coast Guard would have gotten new vessels. And I want you all to understand this. The Coast Guard patrols every day. Every day. There are patrols on a daily basis. This is the first time we hear of an incident like this taking place. And I think it's important for us to take a look at the documents that would have been sent out, the press release that the Coast Guard sent out. Let's take a look at that press release, right? Let's take off camera and then for a little bit. So this is the press release. And one of the things that struck me about the press release is the press release come out Sunday self, right? And it take Express must be 2 days before they publish the press release. Because of course they didn't want the public to see the other side of the story. So it says, while conducting patrols along the south coast of Trinidad just before midnight on Saturday the 5th. So this is midnight patrols. So in the dead of night, a vessel leave Venezuela to come over to Trinidad, and all they're calling this a migrant vessel. Well, they need to stop gaslighting people. So while conducting patrols along the south coast of Trinidad just before midnight on Saturday, 5th of February 2022, the TTS Scarborough detected a vessel that crossed the border between the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago and Venezuela. This vessel was subsequently pursued and attempted to evade TTS Scarborough, whose ship's boat was launched to aid in the interception. All available methods were used, including the use of the loud hailer, ship's horn, searchlight, and flares to try to get the suspect vessel to stop. However, the vessel continued to attempt to evade the TTS Scarborough. In keeping with standard protocols, warning shots ahead of the vessel were next employed. This measure also proved futile. At this time, the ship's boat from TTS Scarborough attempted to intercept the vessel. However, the vessel continued with aggressive maneuvers, first coming into contact with the ship's boat, then making attempts to ram it. So this is what the Coast Guard has to see. And I will say this, even if the Venezuelan vessel, the illegal vessel, didn't try to ram the Coast Guard vessel, let's take that out of the story. Even if they didn't try to ram the vessel, midnight, a vessel has left Venezuela, attempts to enter our waters, speeding. Coast Guard tried to get it to stop. It doesn't want to stop. Warning shots are fired. The vessel still doesn't stop. I don't see that the Coast Guard had any other option but to try to get the vessel to stop. So the question I keep asking is, why did the boat driver not stop? He knows he has people on the vessel. I am going to, based on the rest of this, it appears that the Coast Guard didn't see people until they uncovered them, right? So you would have seen a vessel speeding going. You're not actually seeing people on the vessel. So if you as a boatman know that you have people on your vessel, know that the Coast Guard running you down and asking you to stop, why wouldn't you stop? What else was on that vessel that have you thinking you're going to risk it all? Because that's real critical, you know, people. If I, as a boatman, hear shots fired and realize that them bullets could hit me and them bullets could hit the people in the vessel, why wouldn't I stop? What else on the vessel that was so critical, so important, that I would risk not stopping the vessel? Why did the boatman think he could outrun the Coast Guard vessel? Why? So you see, when Kamla and the Express decide that they're going to run a story for the entire week about a baby that gets shot at sea, and they avoid the wider story of an illegal vessel entering our waters at midnight 37 illegal immigrants and possibly other things on board the vessel. Don't let Kamala and she minions and them gaslight all you. Because the opposition here and media here, where them boy? The opposition here and media here, this is the OCM board. Them like them have permanent sore throat. Them can't tell the editors nothing at all. Media here and the opposition here have masters that they're serving. And I'm putting it to you that the masters that they are serving is not us. And you know why I could tell you that? Because I looked at, this afternoon I went and I looked at all of the newspapers, the 3 newspapers for the last week, because I wanted to take a look at the various stories. 3 newspapers over 6 days, from Saturday to today, Friday. 6 days. Not one newspaper carried a solutions-based story. Not one newspaper had a story in it, a main story or a lead story in it that was meant to help the population understand something. It was clickbait information. It was gaslighting information. It was over-the-top information. It was information meant to make people feel that the country running down the road, that the country going to hell. That is what was in all of the daily newspapers for the last 6 days. 6 days of doom, gloom, gaslighting from every single daily newspaper in the country. Nothing solutions oriented at all. And this is why I keep saying to y'all don't need to read the newspapers, you know. Y'all don't need to read the newspapers. There was a point in time when newspapers here used to provide information. Now you have all of the other entities, you know, putting out information. So if you need health information, Ministry of Health had their social media pages. If you need finance information, Ministry of Finance had their social media pages. UTC, WASA, everybody have their pages putting information out. When you go to newspapers, you are going to newspapers basically because they are packaging all of that information for you. But they're no longer packaging information. They are packaging scandal, they are packaging rumor, they are packaging gossip, they are packaging innuendo. That's what they're doing. This press release from the Coast Guard got a little box in the Express this week. You had huge headlines from Carolyn Kassoon, Canmarie Rodriguez, and Anna Ramdas giving the story of Venezuelan immigrants. None of them ain't give you the story of the boat driver yet. And they failed to give us a proper account of the Coast Guard side of the issue. And I need you all to understand that. A national newspaper, a local newspaper that has promoted itself as a national newspaper, failed to give the local side of the story. It was focused on promoting the Venezuelan illegal immigrant angle of the story, and from a particular perspective of it being a human rights outrage issue. And again, it is tragic that a baby died, but let's also remember that something illegal happened. And we have a Coast Guard, and the point of the Coast Guard is to protect our borders from illegal entry. Yeah? Right. Good. So when you start thinking about those things and factoring in those things, you'll realize the extent of the gaslighting that's taking place here. And the gaslighting is for a reason. Kamala have she masters to serve? And One Caribbean Media, the Express, has masters to serve as well. And they know what they are attempting to do with the masters that they're serving. They know why they're pushing this whole narrative of ease up on illegal immigrants. They know why they're pushing the narrative of ease up on illegal immigrants. So, folks, this is where I'm going to wrap it up. I will see you all on Sunday evening. Sunday, I want to talk about how exactly you go from chopping up vehicles on state land to eventually just bursting in flames on state land. Right? So we talk about that on Sunday. I see you all. Have a good evening. Bye.
Boy, I want you to blaze the fire. Show me your lighters all night. Put the lighters up in the air. Give them fire now and just blaze.